Hi guys, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be looking at trigonometry, trig theory, reductions, and identities. And the question that we're going to be looking at is from the February-March 2011 paper 2. So let's get straight into it. It says evaluate each of the following without using a calculator. Show all working. So the first thing that we are faced with is sine of 130 times tan of 60 all over cos of 540 times tan of 230 times sine of 400. Now in this particular question, we have to know our trig theory. So we go back to the unit circle as discussed in a previous video. So if we look at the Cartesian plane, we know that in the first quadrant that all our trig ratios are positive. In the second quadrant, only sine is positive. In the third quadrant, tan, and in the fourth quadrant, cos is positive. So that is the first quadrant, second, third, and the fourth quadrants. Now, if we have to look very carefully, we know that in the first quadrant we have angles between 0 and 90. In the second quadrant, between 90 and 180. In the third quadrant, between 180 and 270, and in the fourth quadrant between 270 and 360. So the reduction formulas work as follows. Theta, 180 minus theta for the second quadrant. Third quadrant is 180 plus theta, and the fourth quadrant is 360 minus theta. So we will use this unit circle to solve this question. So for 10.3.1, sine of 130, which quadrant will it fall in? It will fall into the second quadrant because it's between 90 and 180. So therefore, if we were to reduce 130, it would be 180 minus 50, which will give us 130 degrees. So therefore, we have to say sine of 180 degrees minus 50 degrees will give us sine of 130. Now, tan of 60. This brings us to our special angles. Our special angles are 0, 30, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, and 90 degrees. So therefore, if it's a special angle, or if it's any angle between 0 and 90, we'll just leave it as it is. So tan of 60, but we can go and just reduce it, or we can use a calculator to help us. If you don't know your special angles, tan of 60 equals to square root of 3. So that is now the square root of 3. Cos of 540. Now that is when you get any angle greater than 540, all you have to do is you can subtract multiples of 360. So 540 minus 360 equals to 180. So therefore we'll have cos of 180 degrees. Tan of 230. Now 230 lies in the third quadrant. So once again, we have to use the reduction formula for the third quadrant. So let's go and look at 180 plus what will give us 230. So 180 plus 50 will be 230. So therefore we'll say tan of 180 plus 50 degrees, which will give us that. Sine of 400, discussed this already. When you have any angle which is greater than 400, you will just subtract multiples of 360. So what are we left with? 40. And now it's an acute angle, so you leave it at sine of 40. So sine of 40 degrees. Right. Okay, so let's look at it now. So we are reducing sine of 180 minus 50. Now don't forget, this is second quadrant. Sine is positive, so therefore it will reduce to positive sine of 50 degrees. Root 3 would remain as it is. Cos of 180. Now cos of 180 will be, see now it's a border, it lies on this border here, so therefore it will be cos of 180, you can say plus or minus 0 degrees, which will leave us with minus cos of 0 degrees, because remember in the second and third quadrants cos is negative, so that would be minus 1. Remember, that's a special angle, so I'm just going to go ahead and write minus 1 there. Okay, tan of 180 plus 50. Now that's the third quadrant. You can see tan is positive, so that reduces to positive tan of 50 degrees. And then sine of 40, we'll leave it as it is, sine of 40 degrees equals 2. Now let's look at that. So what is this tan now? Remember, tan is an identity. So tan is equal to, so tan of 50 is going to equals to sine of 50 over cos of 50. So we're going to write that down. So let's look at this now. Sine of 50 degrees times root 3 all over minus 1 times sine of 50 over cos of 50 degrees. And we got sine of 40. Now this brings me to my explanation of what is sine of 40 equivalent to. Sine of 40 is equal to cos of 50, and that is called complementary angles. Complementary angles is when, if I add these two up here, sine of 40 equals to cos of 50, means if I add up 40 and 50, I must get 90 degrees, and that comes from our knowledge of ratios. Alright, so let's look at that. So sine of 40, I'm going to change that to cos of 50 degrees, and that's complementary angles. So therefore cos of 50 will cancel with cos of 50, because remember that's over 1, and sine of 50 with sine of 50, and now I'll get root 3 over minus 1 is minus root 3, and that's my solution. Let's look at the next question. In the next question I have 1 minus root 2 times sine 75 into root 2 sine 75 plus 1. Now if you look at this, this is sum and difference, sum and difference. Now sum and difference means that if I have x minus y into x plus y, I'm going to be left with x squared minus y squared. Alright, so therefore, remember, if I just rewrite this as 1 plus root 2 times sine of 75, I will be able to have my sum and difference. 1 minus root 2 sine of 75. Okay, so there's my sum and difference. So therefore I can just multiply the first two terms. 1 times 1 will give me 1. So let's look at 10.3.2. So I have 1 and minus root 2 sine 75 times positive root 2 sine of 75 will give me, remember, a minus times a plus is a minus. Root 2 times root 2 will give me 2. And sine of 75 times sine of 75 will be sine squared of 75 degrees. Now what is that? Do you recognize that? Well, cos 2 alpha has 3 expansions that we should know. Cos squared alpha minus sine squared alpha, that's equal to 2, also 2 cos squared alpha minus 1, or 1 minus 2 sine squared alpha. So if you look at this now, 1 minus 2 sine squared alpha, they're testing us on double angles here. So therefore we can write it as cos 2 alpha. So that will be cos 2 times 75 degrees, which is equal to cos of 150 degrees. And cos of 150 degrees brings me back to my unit circle. Remember, 150 lies between 90 and 180, so therefore I'll have to use the formula 180 minus theta, which will reduce now to a special angle, cos of 180 minus 30 degrees, And remember, cos is negative in the second quadrant, so that's minus cos of 30 degrees. And if you don't know your special angles, you can always check using your calculator. Cos of 30 equals to root 3 over 2. So the answer is minus root 3 over 2. Learners, if you haven't subscribed already, don't forget to subscribe to JL Maths. Also like my Facebook page, Justin Lazarus Mathematics, and you can also view all the videos on jlmaths.com. And I'll catch you in the next video.